Welcome back to 0 to 60 Motoring once again for another car review, and today we are looking at a Toyota Rush. I have a very many inquiries on the Toyota Rush, so I'll try as much as possible to cover everything and give you the crucial information you may be needing about the Toyota Rush. If you are new around, consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and following us on our social media platforms so that you don't miss any of our video reviews and car articles on our media platforms. If you also own a car that you'd like us to review, you can get in touch with us via the number below. We'll appreciate that gesture of generosity. Also, if you want to purchase a car, you can also get in touch with us. We offer car scouting and sourcing services so that we make your car ownership journey easy. Alright, let's get straight into this Toyota Rush review. So this is a Toyota that is not a Toyota. Basically, the Toyota Rush is a rebadged Daihatsu Terios. If you are watching this review from Kenya, most probably you've seen the smaller crossovers that normally KPLC staff move around with. That is what is called the Daihatsu Terios. So this is just a Daihatsu Terios, but it has Toyota badges. That is why most probably as we are advancing in this review, you realize that it has no Toyota DNA, especially when it comes to the mechanical setup. So the Toyota Rush is one of the smallest compact crossovers, and when I look at this car, it targets that person who is not necessarily into size, but they want something that has a decent ground clearance and something that can do maybe slight off-roading. Because when you look at the Toyota Rush, it has 22 centimeters of ground clearance. That is the same ground clearance as a Subaru Forester SK9 and more inches than a Mazda CX-5. So you can really look at this car like a tiny car that is actually jacked up. And this ground clearance is one of the ingredients that makes it a good car for slight off-roading. Since the Toyota Rush went out of production this series in 2015, it means if you want a similar car or which looks like this, you'll have to purchase it as a local use car, because the other generation doesn't look like this, and it's more of a family car. So that tells you if you are going to purchase a Toyota Rush in Kenya, then most probably the experience you're going to get will depend how the previous owner has maintained that car. You can't purchase it as a first user locally. So when you look at the Toyota Rush, it's a narrow and tall car. That one has an effect on how this car drives, especially when you shoot it into corners. Under the hood of this Toyota Rush, you have a 1.5 liter naturally aspirated petrol engine. This one is actually called a 3SZ engine. That's why I was saying initially it doesn't have a Toyota DNA, because if it was a Toyota, I'm pretty sure it could be using the ubiquitous 1 and ZFE. The 3SZ engine is also used in cars like the Townes, which is also a rebadged Daihatsu. So when you look at this engine, it is actually placed in a longitudinal manner, basically front to back. And actually that one will give you an insight on how the drivetrain of this car looks like, just like maybe a Mark X or most pickup trucks. So the Toyota Rush can be found as a four-wheel drive car or as a two-wheel drive car. The two-wheel drive is actually a rear-wheel drive. Even when it's a four-wheel drive, the engine will still be mounted longitudinally, but now in such a case, they have given the front wheels drive shafts. So in most cases, even when it's a four-wheel drive car, the rear wheels will still be getting more power. Just picture the drivetrain of this car like you'll picture a rear-wheel drive car, maybe like a Toyota Mark X. So these are 1.5 liter engine here makes around 100 horsepower and 140 Newton meters of torque. Of course, those power numbers can tell you that this one is not into performance, or it's not something that is going to give you spirited driving, but I'll be coming into the driving dynamics in a few moments. Now, that power can be sent to the rear wheels or all the four wheels via 5-speed manual transmission or a 4-speed automatic like what I'm having in this car. Of course, I'll be telling you which one is the best transmission when I'll be doing the driving test. In terms of a reliability or what could go wrong in the long term, I find that the Toyota Rush a hardy car generally, because I've not heard of many complaints regarding the reliability of this car. The 3Z engine here is reliable. Of course, it doesn't give the same review like it will do in a townness, but in the Toyota Rush, I find it actually very reliable. I think it's because of the placement here and even the spacing, because in the Toyota townness, it's a little bit cramped. That's why in that car, it actually overheats. In this car, there is nothing like overheating because of the placement. And then a 5-speed manual is a robust transmission, or even the 4-speed automatic here is actually very hardy. So you can actually term this car as a reliable and a dependable vehicle. In this Toyota Rush, the seating position is good and the road visibility is, I'll say, okay. And when you are looking at the shape of this, or generally the size of this Toyota Rush, it is a small car. Basically, it means it should be very easy to park in tight spots or the narrow parking spots. So you should not be having a problem whatsoever parking this Toyota Rush. So because this is a narrow and tall car, that means it has a high COG, and the high COG technically translates to huge body roll, especially around corners. So it's not a car that you can gun or shoot into corners. But technically, even the power numbers in this car cannot allow you to shoot it into corners. The suspension in this car feels a little bit, is on the firm side, but I'll say it's acceptable because I should not be expecting a GLE like a comfort in this car, because this is just a practical car for A to B movement and slight off-roading. So I should not be having any problem whatsoever with this suspension actually being firm. Now I'm looking at this 4-speed automatic transmission, and the fact that you have to put your foot down for it to do any meaningful change. I feel like the 5-speed manual gearbox will be a better car. Of course, it doesn't make the car fast, but at least because you'll be shifting gears on your own, that one can actually add some little bit of driving spice. It may actually spice or heat things up. That's why for me, for the Toyota Rush, I'll prefer it with a 5-speed manual, though I know very many people will actually purchase the automatic transmission variation. So the 1.5 liter here may feel actually underpowered, especially when you are going uphill and you have to really work it hard for it to bring out any meaningful performance. Because when you look at a 100 horsepower and the aerodynamics of this car, even the size, how it looks like, a 1.5 liter NA engine is not going to deliver any meaningful performance. So if you are looking for something that is going to accelerate or go uphill in a decent manner, then this one is not going to be your cup of tea. So I don't know how the 0 to 100 kilometers per hour is going to look like in this Toyota Rush, because now I cannot be able to test that. But I can predict it cannot be less than 2 days getting to 100 kilometers per hour. Now you may be asking yourself, what is the better variation to purchase in terms of the drivetrain? That is the 2-wheel drive, the rear-wheel drive, or the 4-wheel drive Rush. The version I'm driving here today, or I'm reviewing, is a rear-wheel drive or a 2-wheel drive. And for me, it will be the least desirable when I'm comparing it to the 4-wheel drive variation. Basically, I'll prefer the 4-wheel drive over the 2-wheel drive variation, and my reasons are very simple. When you purchase the 4-wheel drive version, you get a traction to the front wheels also. And this car is always in a 2-wheel drive mode until and otherwise you switch it to 4-wheel drive. So that one technically means for those people who normally fear that a 4-wheel drive car will be consuming a lot of fuel, it is not the case when it comes to the Toyota Rush. So when you look at the 2-wheel drive and the 4-wheel drive versions in terms of fuel consumption of these Toyota Rush, there won't be a difference because the car is not always in a 4-wheel drive. You have to switch it to 4-wheel drive depending on the need. So that's why for me, I'll prefer the 4-wheel drive variation over this 2-wheel drive one, because I'll be getting extra grip And a four-wheel drive Rush with this ground clearance is a car that can actually do wonders when it comes to slight off-roading. Another thing you may like about the four-wheel drive variations is that they come with a diff lock. A diff lock is a very good or a great arsenal when it comes to off-roading because it helps balance power being sent to all the four wheels. So technically, from my standpoint, the four-wheel drive Rush has more pros than a two-wheel drive Rush. So while the Toyota Rush is a small car and has a small engine size, it doesn't tag along a decent fuel numbers, especially when you look at the competition. Now, when you drive the Toyota Rush on the highway and you are gentle on the gas pedal, your fuel numbers will be in the region of 12 kilometers per liter. I think those are low numbers, especially for a 1500cc tiny car. But then, when you look at the aerodynamics of this car, and the drivetrain, then I'm not surprised that the car is doing 12 kilometers per liter, because those are still the same numbers I was getting the other day on a Subaru Impreza GH2. You can also check its review on the channel. And also considering that this car is working with a 4-speed automatic gearbox, then the numbers are expected to be low. And also the fact that this engine doesn't pack much power and you have to work it hard for the car to move, then 12 kilometers per liter should not be surprising you. That tells you when you are in traffic and the car is loaded, your fuel numbers will be below that 12 kilometers per liter. So when you look at the interior of this car, it's not a car that is tailored towards ticking that aesthetics box. It is not a car that is tailored for those people who are into aesthetics, whether on the outside or even or in this interior layout. It's just a car for basic functionality. In terms of spacing, the headroom is good. Even the knee room for me as a driver is okay. The only problem is that if you adjust the seat to the farthest, what I've done here, it means that I'm going to suffocate the rear occupants of their legroom. But I'm not surprised, because even when you look at this car, this is a car. It is a small car that is just raised. So technically, you should not be expecting S-Class legroom in this Toyota Rush. This is a small crossover. Of course, it has this spare wheel mounted on this tailgate, which actually give you some access into the boot here. But that means if you have a load or luggage that you want to load into this car, you cannot park this car up close or close to the wall. You have to give it a little bit of distance, because you'll have to open this boot like you will be opening your door, your house door. So when you are looking at this boot space here, it is very usable now that the spare wheel is actually mounted outside. Because the car is tall, I think you will be having some decent boot space in this Toyota Rush. If you are looking for performance or handling and driving pleasure, then I'll advise that you look elsewhere, because the Toyota Rush has no ingredient that is going to make your driving experience sound good. So from my standpoint, I look at the Toyota Rush as a car for those people who are avoiding 2000cc crossovers, and they want 1.5 liter crossovers that can do mild off-roading, has a decent sitting position and road visibility, and something, let me say, that is generally hardy, because there are not many crossovers below 2000cc that give you an option of a four-wheel drive and are as hardy as a Toyota Rush. So in terms of the pricing, a car like what you are seeing in this video will be going for around 800 to around 850,000 shillings. For the later years, the last batches, the 2015 ones, you will find them actually going up to 1.5 million shillings. So it is a car that has a demand, basically because it's a crossover generally. Crossovers have a high demand in our Kenyan market. I'm not a big fan of tiny cars, but if you are looking for a hardy car that is dependable and can do a slight off-roading, then you can consider the Toyota Rush. I find it stronger than the Nissan Juke, and because of the four-wheel drive capability and these are decent ground clearance, it is a car that is going to survive up-country terrains with ease. I think that a short review can give you some insights about the Toyota Rush. If you have a question regarding this car or another car generally, you can get in touch with us, or you check our social media platforms. Most probably you may find that we have already reviewed the car that you may be wanting more information about. In case you are new around, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss any of our car reviews. I think that is enough for today, guys. Bye for now. I'll see you on the next one on a 0 to 60 motoring.